This wasn't food, it was cocaine, over a ton of it, hidden inside boxes marked frozen chicken. A smuggling network disguised as a logistics chain. Cold storage, hot profit. More than £1.5 billion in drugs moved quietly through this pipeline, enough to flood streets, fund gangs, and destroy lives by the thousands. To the outside world, it looked like business as usual. But beneath the frost, buried in poultry, was one of the UK's biggest drug trafficking operations. Encrypted messages, coded orders, and a supply line stretching from Midlands warehouses to international cartels. At the centre, 10 men, fathers, friends, business owners, all now serving time. West Midlands police cracked it, one message at a time. What looked like chicken turned into court evidence. What looked like silence became confessions. But here's the question. How does a scheme this big stay hidden for so long? And who's still out there, ready to pick up where they left off? This is the rise and fall of the frozen chicken cocaine gang. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's get into it. It began in ordinary places, industrial estates where the lights hum late into the night, quiet cul-de-sacs with tidy driveways, truck depots where the engines never really cool down, no red flags, no alarms, just the background noise of a country that runs on freight. In one of those quiet towns, Cheslin Hay, Meninda Dosanjh blended in. Meninda Dosanjh was the kind of man who knew how to move things. At 39, living in the quiet suburb of Cheslin Hay, he didn't raise eyebrows. He wasn't on any wanted list. But behind the scenes, he was organizing something bigger than a side hustle. Something that looked like logistics, but ran on secrets and speed. Dosanjh wasn't working alone. He had lieutenants, men like Amandeep Rishi, 42, from Birmingham, and Mandeep Singh, 42, from Wolverhampton. They didn't talk loud or draw attention, but they understood the game. Supply, demand, and discretion. The product? Cocaine. The packaging? Frozen chicken. Pallets of it, trucked in under the radar. On the street, cocaine comes in grams. These guys dealt in tons. Peter Massey, a 44-year-old from Halesowen, played his part too, as did Mohammed Usman, just 29, from Oldbury, younger, quieter, but already neck-deep in the operation. Each man had a role: coordination, transport, security, cash handling. It wasn't chaos, it was structured. Corporate, almost. They moved like businessmen, because in their eyes, they were. This wasn't a gang, it was a supply chain, a revenue stream. Cocaine in, cash out. Simple, clean, and they were smart about it. The drugs didn't come in bags or bricks. They came tucked into the cold center of frozen chicken pallets, sealed and wrapped and indistinguishable from the real thing. The perfect camouflage. Who checks a truck full of chicken for a ton of powder? They kept their conversations on EncroChat, encrypted phones designed for criminals who didn't want to get caught. Messages disappeared, locations masked. It wasn't just security, it was a kind of confidence. They weren't whispering. They thought no one was listening. But for all the planning, for all the code names and cold precision, one fact remained. Real people were getting hurt. On the street, someone's brother was overdosing. Someone's kid was getting caught in the cycle. This wasn't a victimless crime. It was just a crime with well-dressed criminals. And slowly, piece by piece, those quiet conversations would become evidence. That sealed chicken? Evidence. The tyres packed with £1.6 million in notes? Evidence. But all of that was still to come. At the start, it was just a few men in the Midlands building something big, out of silence, speed, and frozen birds. It didn't happen overnight. At first, it was a few runs, a single truck, a test, to see if the plan held up under pressure. Frozen chickens in, cocaine hidden beneath, and nothing but a manifest and a forced smile at the depot gate. And it worked. So they did it again. Soon it wasn't just one truck, it was several. And not just chicken. They learned how to fold themselves into the machinery of trade, industrial equipment, imported goods, vehicle parts. They didn't just smuggle, They disguised. What they were building wasn't flashy. It wasn't the kind of empire that sits on top of a skyscraper. It was the kind that hides beneath it, built on burner phones and quiet meetings, reinforced by trust, fear, and encrypted instructions. One route became 5. One contact became 10. More drivers, more handlers, more storage sites tucked into the anonymous corners of the Midlands. Cash came in by the bag. And cash, like product, had to be moved. They hid it in tires, in hollowed-out engines, in the false bottoms of machines meant for factory floors. £1.6 million in used notes, smuggled out with the same precision as the coke came in. They used aliases on EncroChat, not names, not faces. It was all numbers and nicknames. Messages weren't long, just coordinates, weights, coded phrases. To anyone else, it was gibberish, but to them, it was the language of scale. And with every successful run, the stakes got higher. Not just financially, personally. They were in deep now. Too deep to walk away. Too many people knew too much. Too many pounds stacked up in too many places. This wasn't just risk. It was risk with a rhythm. And here's where I want you to check in for a second. Because it's easy, especially in a story like this, to get caught up in the mechanics of it. The routes, the tech, the cleverness. But let's not forget what the cocaine was for. It didn't vanish into thin air. It hit the streets. It filled pockets, sure, but it also filled graves. It fueled addiction, tore families apart. Some of the damage happened quietly, over time. Some all at once. So as the gang scaled up their operation, remember, the harm scaled with it. As the operation grew slicker, something else started growing too. Attention. From outside. From law enforcement. From silent eyes that were suddenly watching every move, every truck, every message. The empire was rising. But so was the pressure. Because when you build something this big, this carefully, the smallest crack can bring the whole thing down. It always breaks somewhere. No matter how airtight you think your operation is, there's always a crack, a wrong move, a weak link, a shift in the wind. For this crew, it wasn't a driver who folded. It wasn't a warehouse camera or a stray fingerprint. It was a message. EncroChat, the encrypted network they used to speak in silence, was supposed to be unbreakable, built for criminals, sold to them as untouchable. Phones wiped themselves remotely. Conversations disappeared on command. No names, no traces. They were wrong. Across the channel, cybercrime units in France and the Netherlands cracked EncroChat, a phone network custom-built for the underworld, used by drug traffickers, weapons dealers, even organized murder-for-hire rings. And they didn't even know it. Not at first. For weeks, police across Europe read their messages in real time. Hundreds of thousands of chats. Cartel-level coordination spoken in codes that weren't as clever as they thought. The UK's National Crime Agency got their slice of the feed. So did West Midlands Police. That's when the picture started to form. They began watching the Midlands crew, the one using code names but talking about weights and drop-offs and tracking numbers. Hidden beneath slang and digital smoke, the operation was moving serious weight, over a tonne of cocaine, much of it hidden in frozen chicken pallets imported under the radar. Hidden behind code names and half-sentences, the messages painted a picture. Pallet numbers, drop sites, weights, references to white, birds, gear. The slang changed, but the pattern stayed the same. And once you recognized the rhythm, you couldn't unsee it. They started mapping the network. Who was speaking to whom? Who controlled the flow? Slowly, methodically, names began to surface behind the aliases. Dosanjh, Rishi, Singh, Masi, Usman. This wasn't just intel. It was a window. From there, the operation unfolded like a slow-motion trap. Surveillance teams shadowed delivery vans. Unmarked cars waited near depots. Cameras were hidden. Phone lines tapped. Drones watched from above. And all the while, the gang kept moving, unaware that the silence they trusted had already been broken. Police moved carefully, quietly. They didn't want panic. They wanted proof. Not just suspicion, evidence, something that would hold in court. So they waited, documented, cross-checked. By the time police were ready to strike, they had names behind the aliases. They knew who was running what, and they knew exactly where to hit. July 2020. The silence ended. It began with a van, nothing special to look at, pulled over on a return run from Essex docks. Inside, 150 kilos of cocaine hidden inside frozen chicken pallets. That was the moment it all became real. Not just a suspicion, not just digital whispers, real product, real proof. Then came the rest. In Sutton Coldfield, a warehouse search revealed another 225 kilos of cocaine, part of a wider plot to ship the goods to Australia. Not your everyday street operation, this was global-scale trafficking disguised as wholesale poultry. Further south, in Oldbury, a quieter job was unfolding. Mohammed Usman was moving cash, big cash, hidden in tyres. Nearly £500,000 in notes passed to Saeed Hashemian in London, packed tight like spare parts in rubber, and still more. Another van, another false front, this time an industrial air compressor, modified with a hidden compartment. Police cracked it open. Inside, over £1 million in cash, crisp, ready to move, all of it dirty. Over 10 days, police moved fast. At a quiet home in Cheslin Hay, 39-year-old Maninder Dosanjh answers his door to officers in plain clothes. Inside, the kitchen smells like coffee. There's a ledger tucked under the fruit bowl, and a phone that hasn't buzzed in hours, but it's already given him away. He doesn't fight. He doesn't speak. He knows. They cuff him, escort him out under grey skies. The next day, it's Amandeep Rishi in Birmingham, the planner, the route guy. 11 years older, just as precise. His hands are steady when they cuff him, still calculating the odds, still coming up short. And like that, it unravels. By the end of that 10-day sweep, 10 men are in custody, some in quiet homes, others in warehouses, one caught transferring cash in London, another just leaving work. No resistance, just the weight of inevitability. EncroChat wasn't just the turning point. It was the crack in the code that let the light in. And when it came, it was blinding. Birmingham Crown Court, August 2020. The courtroom doesn't care about fear or bravado. It deals in facts, and the facts are overwhelming. Prosecutors lay it all out. Over 1 tonne of cocaine smuggled into the UK, hidden in frozen chicken pallets. Nearly £1.6 million in cash seized from tyres, compressors, and vans. Coordinated using EncroChat, the same system that gave them away. Every defendant pleads guilty. The judge doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He just hands down years like bricks. Maninder Dosanjh, 16 years and 8 months. Amandeep Rishi, 11 years and 2 months. Mohammed Usman, 9 years and 8 months. Peter Masi, 8 years. Mandeep Singh, 7 years and 2 months. Randeep Singh, 6 years. Saeed Hashemian, 5 years and 4 months. Tajinder Dhillon, 3 years and 4 months. Ruprai Sandhu, 2 years, suspended. Stephen Smith, 20 months, suspended. A combined sentence of more than 80 years. The hierarchy is dust now. The phones are in evidence bags. The banknotes have been counted, sealed, stored. The warehouses are empty. Outside the courtroom, the press gather. Inside, a few families sit behind glass, watching people they knew vanish into years they'll never get back. No last words, no theatrics. Just reality. Heavy, simple, final. The courtroom doors close. The reporters pack up. The headlines run dry. But crime like this doesn't end when the sentences are handed down. It echoes. It echoes in the streets where the drugs were meant to land, where addiction sinks its claws into people who never heard the name Maninder Dosanjh. It echoes in the homes where £1.6 million could have rebuilt lives, not wrecked them. And it echoes in the silence of the families, both of the accused and the affected left behind with nothing but questions and years that don't move quickly. Because behind every kilo of cocaine was a choice, a trade, a cost. And when that kind of money moves, it doesn't just pass through cities, it changes them. One deal at a time, one promise at a time. The impact is slow, quiet, but real. This wasn't just frozen chicken stuffed with drugs. It was a system, a pipeline, built on lies, risk, and cold calculation. And now, the system's exposed. But new ones will rise, smarter, slicker, quieter. Which means the real work doesn't stop here. It starts with knowing how this one fell. Knowing that encrypted phones and warehouse fronts are no longer enough to hide the damage behind them, and remembering that the fight isn't just against crime, it's for the people left in its wake. So stay sharp, ask better questions, look past the headlines, because the story always runs deeper than the arrest. Thanks for riding this case through to the end. At Crime Pulse, we dig into the stories behind the headlines, the gangs, the moves, the moments where it all falls apart. If this kind of deep dive true crime is your thing, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. There's always another story pulsing just beneath the surface. I'll see you in the next one.